Hello YouTube, Mike at Carbonite Lab back again with another video update. Been a while since I've done one. Had a lot of stuff going on in the last quarter of 2014, but here we are, new year. Let's get back on track. My last Star Wars RPG section was based on a new player and how to get your character started as far as building it up, choosing a species, choosing a class, and how to go about doing that. This series I'll do will be based upon if you're a game master, a GM, and you want to start a campaign. So we'll call this first video how to get started. First things first, get yourself the Core Rulebook. Doesn't have to be this edition. I just prefer this one, but you got to have one of these to kind of start off with the game or a campaign. Excuse me. Next, you got to get some people involved, get them committed to sit down, play the game, roll some dice, and have some fun. That's the easy part. First thing you got to do in order to have a campaign is have a story. What's this whole thing going to be about? So the questions you got to come up with are the who, the where, the when, and what the goals are. So to this, I always go for inspiration from whatever I got at my disposal, whether it be the Core Rulebook itself, any other literature I have, like Starships of the Galaxy. This is one of my favorites right here. This is Essential Guide to Planets and Moons. This one has a lot of stuff. Over the years, I've gone through this, got all the different worlds, the sentient and indigenous species, stuff that goes on in that place, what the weather's like, the topography, all that good stuff. That's a good one. Or even as something simple as, like, say, maybe the Star Wars comics that come out. All this is just to really inspire you, to get you thinking about ideas for the Star Wars universe that you're going to provide. What's going on in that universe? What are your players going to be doing in this world that you're going to provide? So once you start to get some ideas about what your story is going to be like, you got to be able to organize it and put it in thoughts that's easy enough for you to kind of build off of. So I always start with an outline. I just kind of wrote down a basic one to kind of just use for an example. So to make it simple on myself, I always have my beginning, my middle, and then my end. In a case like this, just for the sake of example, the players are going to start off on Hoth, end up on Ord Mantell, and end on Yavin 4. So the cool thing about the Star Wars universe is that you have the ability to move around from planet to planet, which is great because starship travel is easy to come across and allows you to create different settings for the campaign as they progress along for the story. Keeps the interest up. So again, back to the example, knowing what my beginning, my middle, my end are going to be, I start filling in the middle sections with my story. They're going to meet a contact on Hoth. They're going to endure an ice storm. They're going to be a Wampa encounter. And then we'll do the same thing with the middle and, of course, in the end. And this is just story that I come up with, ideas that I thought would be kind of cool. Hey, let's throw a Wampa encounter in there. Somehow work it into the story. So this is just an example of how I come up with a basic outline to get my story kind of solidified so I got something to build off, the architecture or the bones of your story. So once you got that down, you can start going into specifics about who is this contact and what kind of setting are they going to meet them in. Same thing with the ice storm. You know, when does the ice storm take place? Are the players caught out in the ice storm? Are they flying ships around on Hoth when the ice storm hits? Or is the ice storm what they're caught out in and then they meet the Wampa? Either way, you come up with the story and figure out what it is that you want to do. So once you got that established and you got your storyline, you have to consider a few things about your story. Number one, is this going to be a full autonomy campaign where you allow your characters to do whatever it is they want to do when they do it? Or is this going to be the opposite, where it's a complete full narrative storyline where your characters are basically being led through the entire campaign by whatever it is that you place in front of them, giving them limited access to interacting with other characters that are in the campaign or do additional things. Let me give an example of what I mean. In full autonomy mode, you can have the entire group hanging out on this planet here, right? Tanab. And while they're there at a spaceport, they cross through a large open area where there's open air merchant market. They're trying to get across that to get to a bar where they're going to meet their contact. So in a full autonomy game, they could choose to walk through this open air market and go right to the place where they're going to meet the contact, or they can stop and choose to talk to some of the vendors or probably purchase or negotiate with them and buy stuff and just do more interaction. They actually feel like they're in control. In a full narrative, you would simply say, you guys exit the starship, you'll have to walk through an open air market, and your destination lies on the other end. And basically you tell them essentially that they just need to go there, and you don't give them the opportunity to interact with anything in the open air market. And they would say, hey, I want to talk to that vendor. In a full narrative, you would say, actually, you don't have time to talk to the vendors because you know that your mission is important and you have to get to this area to meet your contact. So you kind of shut them down and don't give them the access to anything else. So you have to decide whether it's going to be full autonomy or full storyline, full narrative. I choose that, or I think that choosing the balance between the two and allowing the players to interact with the environment as well as having some storyline is crucial. With that being said, another place that you have to strike an even balance with the game itself is whether it's going to be a full combat hack and slash or whether you're going to have more deep, in-depth intellectual RPG where your players are going to have to solve mysteries, deal with clues and puzzles and things along that line. Again, striking the balance in the middle allows everybody to stay interested without getting bored of it's constantly being combat or the other side, which is full deep role-playing. Strike the balance, everybody gets to roll dice and interact with characters and do some role-playing, and it's nice and fun for everybody else. Everybody stays involved, everybody stays interested. So once you've decided those two, or at least you realize that you have to strike the balance between that, then you got to lay down the rules. So what I mean by that is rules themselves. I will throw out examples here. I come up with house rules. These are just some basic examples. House rules are anything that is in the core rulebook, but rules that you have for your game. So, for example, no metagaming. Make it a rule. Your players sit down, we're going to enjoy a session of rolling dice and pretending like you're in a Star Wars environment. Metagaming isn't allowed at my table. So I just put that as on there. No farting. Well, you'd be surprised how important this one could be for at least some players in your group. This is just an example of you can just have fun with your house rules. You know, make it somewhat interesting or humorous. Another one I choose to do is if a player is absent 3 sessions, a character dies, or at least he is no longer in the story itself. If you roll a natural 1, aside from the things that tell you what happens in the core rulebook, in my game, if you roll a natural 1, the core rules apply, but there's also something else bad that's going to happen to you. So let me give you an example. Let's just say that you're getting ready to shoot a villain, and you roll a natural 1, so instead of your weapon having a misfire or having to reload an energy cell, aside from that, you roll a natural 1, something else bad is going to happen. You might trip and fall, you might accidentally sneeze and turn and shoot your buddy. You never know, but something bad will happen. And then, of course, like the last one as an example, if a character dies, which does happen from time to time, they're going to be allowed to reroll a character. Again, these are my personal rules I just threw out here for an example, but there's something to build off of to give you ideas. So once you got your house rules set and you put those in play, at that point, you get everybody to sit down and you start to get this whole idea of a campaign together. Everybody's got their character sheets filled out. The best thing you can do to help yourself in the long run is use this book to your advantage and go through it. In the back, there is a game mastering section. And this will help you along the way to remember how to determine your style of play, how to propel the game forward, how to keep the game balanced, how to educate, how to be fair, how to be the judge. You know, changing the rules if you have to, things that go along with your campaign to make them work for your storyline. So use the book as a tool, but going back to the bookkeeping, make sure you take all your players' character sheets, especially when you first start out in level 1, and make copies of them. And then every time they level after that, update your copies. That way you've always got a constant updated version of what their character is, so you can understand what the character's strengths and weaknesses are, and you can play off that. You can build your story with that. Another good thing about having that copy of the character sheet is once you know what their weaknesses and their strengths are, a good GM will allow the player to use his character with his strengths. So for example, if you have a soldier who is really good at ranged combat, right? And he likes to be shooting at stuff, you give him the opportunity to do so. Let him excel at it. Give him a chance to succeed. If you've got a scoundrel who's really good at picking locks, give him a lock to pick. Give him something that he wants to do. If you give these little Easter eggs along the way, or carrots, if you will, it helps keep the players happy, and it allows them to feel more comfortable about following your story as well. So that's pretty much it, guys. This will be video 1 on how to get your campaign started. So do a quick recap. First thing is first, right? You got to have Core Rulebook, easy enough to get a hold of. Use Bookstore. Once you get that, get your players involved, and then grab all your Star Wars info, whether it's the movies or books, things like that, and start just flipping through it. Let your imagination go wild. Heck, even walk through the toy aisle at Walmart, grab some Star Wars toys, pick them up, and start letting your brain just kind of, have fun with the idea that you're going to be doing this. Get your inspiration, right? Once you got your inspiration, start building your storyline. Grab yourself a pen and paper, come up with a quick outline, start filling it in. Don't worry about all the details involved, because the game will constantly change because your players will do things that you didn't anticipate. So get your basic outline down for your story and be prepared to ad-lib as you go along. Come up with some house rules, whatever works best for you and your buddies. And then lastly, do diligent bookkeeping. Make copies of their character sheets, so that way you can stay on top of who's doing what, who has what, and know how to play off their strengths and weaknesses. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this first video for this section of GMing a Star Wars RPG. Our next section is probably going to be more or less on how to create and sell the feel of the environment that it is that you are trying to put your characters in. So stay tuned. As always, if you have any comments, questions, ideas, please post them in the comments below, and we will talk to you later.